It is a special live edition of Locked On New York Rangers. The Rangers give up a 2-goal lead in the third period, but they regroup, find a way to get it done in overtime. Alex Wennberg is your unlikely hero, and let's go ahead and talk about literally everything.
You're Locked On the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1076 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, and today's special live episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So another overtime contest for the Rangers in the playoffs, another overtime win for the Rangers in the playoffs. They are now 4-0 when the game goes into extra time in the postseason run so far. And just like the last game, I was going to say, and I talked about this in the last episode, I was going to say two straight unlikely heroes, but have you seen what Barclay Goodrow is doing? The last game, he wins it in overtime. He scores 2 big goals in this one. I don't think we could call Barclay Goodrow an unlikely hero anymore, but we can call Alex Wennberg an unlikely hero, and he obviously bags the game winner in overtime in this game. What a moment for Alex Wennberg, kind of waiting for something like this from Wennberg. And obviously, you acquire him at the trade deadline, and you're mostly looking at him as what he is, which is a defensive specialist and somebody that can go out there, kill penalties, help you win games in that way. But what was it? Like 1 goal in 33 games or something like that? I have it written down. Yeah, here it is. So 1 goal in 33 games for Alex Wennberg since joining the Rangers before this one. I thought he'd have a couple more goals than that, but obviously he got the job done when it counted the most, a deflection goal. We're going to break down that play in just a little bit, but I think it's important to just kind of go over how we got to the overtime period. I'm just going to share my thoughts on that and everything that happened in the third period. Obviously, the Rangers, they were down in this game early, and they come back, and they end up taking a 4-2 lead into the third period. They've got like about 1:35 to go on the Trouba double minor to kill off. The third period started great in that regard. I thought the Rangers did a heck of a job on the PK, grinding on the clock there, but then the Panthers scored twice in relatively short order not too long after that. Next thing you know, you blink, and a 4-2 lead is now a 4-4 tie. And I really like the timeout used by Peter Laviolette. I think there was about like 11 minutes, 10 minutes to go, whatever it was at that point. But Rangers are scuffling a little bit, and you could tell he was really just encouraging them and trying to get them back to playing their brand of hockey, which initially worked. I thought the Rangers, for the first 2 or 3 minutes after that timeout, it felt like they were finding their game again a little bit, couple of scoring chances. Mika, strong drive to the net. He couldn't convert. Vincent Trocheck shot just wide. Both those things happened on the shift after the timeout, and finally just spending at least a little bit of time on Florida's side of the ice. But as soon as the Rangers kind of got rolling there, the Panthers really took it back from them, and the Panthers were dominating. They were dominating at the end of the third period. They obviously had the 2 goals earlier. They had really found their game, and my thoughts at this time were, with 5 minutes to go, and especially 2 or 3 minutes to go, just get to overtime. I think at that point in the game, watching, you never know for sure what can happen, but you're watching the way everything's unfolding here. The Rangers are so far back on their heels. All the action is on their side of the ice. The Rangers can't get the puck away from the Panthers, and they're basically relying on Igor Shesterkin to save their bacon, which they did. Igor was great in this whole game, but I think that his best stretch was down in the final few minutes of the third period, making a couple of really nice saves and making sure this game stayed tied and got to the overtime period. And then, of course, once you get to overtime, okay, well, you know what? We get a little bit of a break here. Everybody goes into the locker room. Everybody, somebody has to stand up and do a rah-rah speech or whatever needs to be said at that point. You get yourself hydrated, do whatever you got to do, come back out for the overtime period, ready to rock. And as we know, the Rangers have played excellent hockey in this postseason run up to this point, including this game now, game 3 here against the Panthers. Rangers now, of course, 4-0 in overtime in the playoffs, and none of those wins have been undeserved. I feel like the Rangers have really found a way to put their best foot forward in the extra time. And, this game might be the one exception to that because the Panthers had some chances to win this early in the overtime. I mean, they had a 2-on-1 literally about 8 seconds into the overtime. Igor had to make the save there, but they eventually got their chance. And obviously, Alex Wennberg scores the goal. And like I said, we'll break down the game-winning goal in just a second. I've got a lot of thoughts there. But to kind of set the stage here for just how much of an unlikely hero exactly was Alex Wennberg. Again, this dude had 1 goal in 33 games before this, and he is a defensive specialist, and I get all that, but he's mostly been sharing the third line, and you want a little bit more offense out of your third line center. I don't think that's an unfair assessment. Not too long ago, a couple episodes ago, I floated the idea of maybe dropping Alex Wennberg down to the fourth line and putting Barclay Goodrow in the top 9, putting him on the third line and, have him like center Heedle or Kakko. And I stand by that. I think, I don't think that was like a bad idea that I had there, but by that same token, it wasn't anything against Wennberg. It was just me wanting to get Barclay Goodrow into the top 9, get him some more minutes. He's obviously on a heater right now. And of course that continued this afternoon in Florida. But again, I'm not throwing out Alex Wennberg's offensive numbers to like bash him or anything. I think he is an important player on this team. But again, just to kind of set the stage and show how much of an unlikely hero he really was in this game. And let me just say that that's why the hockey playoffs are awesome. I mean, there's 100 reasons we could list. We could do that in an episode, 100 reasons why the Stanley Cup playoffs rule. But I think as much as anything, something that's really up there, at least for me, is that anybody can be the hero on any given night. This is not basketball where you're just going to give the ball to your best player. I'm not knocking all these other sports. I'm just explaining like the difference here and why hockey I think is the best. But basketball, you can always get the ball to your best player. Baseball, I think the pitcher is obviously going to have a lot to say about the outcome. And football, the quarterback, obviously has a big say here. But in hockey, you pretty much have to put everybody on the ice. I know they were hiding Rempe a little bit toward the end of this game, but you know what? You have to have everybody out there. It can be a different hero on any given night. And I don't know how many of us had Alex Wennberg on their bingo card having the overtime winner once the overtime period started, but he got the job done. Just an awesome play. And I am actually going to shout out a couple of loyal listeners of Locked On New York Rangers. These you see a lot of the same people in the chat, the live chat of YouTube pretty often, and the same people leave comments, and I hear from you guys from emails and DMs and everything. There were a couple that kind of called Alex Wennberg having a big moment. We'll get to that in a minute. But I think we've talked long enough and set the stage long enough here. It is now time to go ahead and talk about this game-winning goal scored by Alex Wennberg. There was a lot happening. For a play that only lasted about 3 or 4 seconds, there was a lot happening here. So you've got Lindgren and Fox on the ice. They're your defensemen, and obviously the third line there, Wennberg centering Kakko and Jack Roslovic. The puck drops for the faceoff. And Wennberg, I think he got credit for winning the faceoff here. He sort of won it, but it wasn't a clean win. The puck is there kind of at his skates. And what a job by both Kaapo Kakko and Jack Roslovic on this play, fighting for this puck like their lives depend on it. All this talk about how the Rangers lack grit and they lack toughness. Well, you got Kakko and Jack Roslovic, 2 guys who aren't really known for like physicality and being the grittier players on the Rangers, but both these guys battling with everything they had to get possession of this puck. And Kakko initially, he comes in to help Wennberg because the puck's obviously laying there, and he's trying to get the puck. And the Panthers pick it up for just a brief second. You get Roslovic, though, shoving the Panther that had the puck and causing him to go off balance just a little bit. And then what a play by Kaapo Kakko. He kind of sneaks around everybody because he was on the right side when the puck dropped. He moves over to the left side, and he lifts the stick of his opponent. And that little play by Kaapo Kakko freed up the puck. Roslovic saw it. Credit to him for reacting to it. And Roslovic, that is, makes the pass back to Ryan Lindgren. Lindgren takes the shot. And props to Alex Wennberg for getting to the front of the net here. He was pretty much by himself, and he redirects it into the twine, and we all go crazy, and the Rangers win. But, man, what a battle for this puck on this play. And it's one of those things, if something like this happens midway through the first period and the Rangers don't end up scoring a goal, then we're not really talking about it right now. And it's just one of those million different little things that happens during the course of a hockey game. But the little things make a big difference, especially in playoff hockey and especially in playoff overtime hockey. And awesome stuff by Lindgren. Great shot setting up Wennberg for the deflection. Great job by Wennberg. But man, awesome play by Roslovic and Kakko. With Kakko, obviously that healthy scratched the game before, and we don't know for sure what the future is going to hold for him, but a huge play here. The Rangers needed all four of these guys on this play to make this goal happen, and that's exactly what occurred. And man, that place erupted, for being an away game. The Rangers had a lot of fans in there. There was a lot of blue. You could see it kind of dotted all over the arena, and a lot of noise when that goal went in. So just awesome to see the Rangers take the Panthers' best punch. They got punched in the mouth in the third period. Let's just call it like it is. The Panthers were swarming. And it's funny because in game 5 against the Canes, I was critical of the way that the Rangers approached the third period. I just didn't like their game. I thought they were too passive and just willing to kind of go into a defensive shell. And, the Canes came storming back and won that game. And that feels like ancient history at this point. In this game, I don't know that the Rangers, they clearly were not at their best in the third period, but I thought it was the Panthers' brilliance more than anything else. That's a heck of a team the Rangers are playing. And when they get going on that forecheck and they just start swarming you, it can be a little bit overwhelming. And I think that happened to the Rangers, but props to them for getting to the overtime, regrouping, understanding the situation in front of them that, it doesn't matter how we got here. We're in overtime. Figure out a way to get it done, and that's exactly what they did. And I think you really got to credit the Rangers. Now, 4-0 in the overtime, as I said, a team that continues to show that it can be at its best when the pressure is at its highest. That's the best way that I can explain it. And one of the biggest compliments that I can give to this Ranger team throughout the entire regular season. And now we're seeing it in the playoffs as well. And I got to give a couple of shout outs before we move on to some other things to both John Harmon and then also NY Rangers Fan 05. The last episode, they were both in the live chat on the YouTube, and they both called a big moment from Alex Wennberg. John said in the live chat, he's responding to another user, Matthew. He says, "You know what, Matthew? Just wait. I think Wennberg gonna have his moment." And then New York Rangers Fan 05 responded with, "I think our third line will come up big, Cooley or Wennberg specifically." It ended up being Wennberg, but great call by both of you, and just awesome to see. And, Wennberg, I said, he had one of his better games of the playoffs in the game before this one. I think he hit the crossbar at one point, just looked a little bit more engaged offensively. And for him to have his big moment here, that redirection, this is awesome stuff, man. You're going to need contributions up and down your lineup throughout the playoffs. And, man, the Rangers get it here. So awesome stuff. We're going to keep everything rolling in just a second. Going to talk a little bit about Alexis Lafreniere. We got to give him his flowers after the game that he just had. And Barclay Goodrow, what he's doing is just absolutely unreal. So we will get to all that fun stuff in just a second. All right, we just want to go ahead and let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. It is winner take all time in the NBA and the NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every single playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, we just want to go ahead and thank everybody, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. And for the everydayers, definitely stick around. Going to have an episode on Monday as well. We're going to talk about lineup decisions for Game 4. Also, the injury to Jimmy Vesey. I had planned to talk about that in this episode, but so much happened in this game. We'll save it for the next one. Obviously, an unfortunate loss for the Rangers. And Cabo Caco's future with the Rangers. Obviously, he had a big hand in that game-winning goal, but being a healthy scratch in the Eastern Conference Final, we'll see what happens next for Kakko. And also going to talk a little bit about the controversial Jacob Trouba elbow and some of the physicality and nastiness of this series. But I do want to shift our attention right now to Alexis Lafreniere. And, a thought that I had as this game was kind of, progressing here, and then the Rangers take a lead at 3-2, and they eventually build it up to 4-2. This was a game, and the ESPN announcers were quick to point this out, that the Rangers, it feels like the Rangers stole one here, right? They were getting outplayed for a good chunk of this game. I don't think that's an unfair thing to say. But one thing I will say, and it's a thought that I said kind of occurred to me when the Rangers were building their lead to 3-2 to 4-2, is that when you're getting outshot and outchanced, and you're spending more time in your defensive zone than the offensive zone by a pretty wide margin, when that's all the case, and you're getting swarmed a little bit, and you're getting fewer scoring chances than your opponent, it just makes it that much more important to score on the few chances that you do get. And man, did the Rangers do that in this game. All 5 goals that the Rangers scored, the 4 regulation, we got 2 from Goodrow, 2 from Lafreniere, and then, of course, Wennberg in overtime. All 5 goals basically were kind of the out of nowhere variety. The Lafreniere drive to the net to score. That was big, obviously. And, I mean, Lafreniere on his second goal, he pretty much did everything by himself. The 2 Goodrow goals were kind of out of nowhere, too. Rangers scoring just 25 seconds after they scored at one point in this game. Lafreniere made it 1-1, then Goodrow scored 25 seconds later to make it 2-1. These goals really just kind of came out of nowhere. It wasn't a case of the Rangers dominating in the offensive zone, and you'd like to see them be able to do that a little bit more, have some sustained offensive zone time, have some second and third chances. We didn't really see a ton of that in this game, but they still found a way, and there is something to be said about that. And like I said, you got to make your scoring chances count when you're getting, I don't want to say like an embarrassingly low amount of them, but they didn't have a lot of scoring chances. And for the most part, I did think the Panthers mostly outplayed the Rangers in this game. But again, there is absolutely something to be said for finding a way to get the job done in spite of that. So for Lafreniere, I mean, what can you say, man? This dude has arrived. Like, it's at the point now, if Alexis Lafreniere, if this is the player Lafreniere is going to be for the rest of his career, he's already a heck of a player, and he'll have a very long career and a very successful career as well. But, you think about the upside now and the fact that this guy was the number 1 overall pick, and the way he's come into his own, the way he's clicked with Panarin and Trocheck this year. He was all over the ice in this game. It wasn't just the goals. He was everywhere, just skating so well. And somebody that's a problem for the opposition right now. But as far as the goals go, the first goal that was scored by Lafreniere, I gotta say, I feel like the Rangers did get a little bit of a break on this one, because Trouba's got the puck in his own zone, and he tries to pass the puck up the ice, and it gets knocked down by a Florida forward. Kind of an ill-advised pass, to the center of the ice, and there was somebody there. Fortunately for the Rangers, and fortunately for Trouba, it went right back to him. So Trouba gets another chance at it. This time, he's able to hit Vincent Trocheck in the neutral zone. Trocheck is kind of, his momentum's carrying him away from the Panthers zone, away from the Panthers blue line, but he sees Lafreniere going by him. He leads him. Lafreniere explodes past everybody and goes to the backhand, and roofs at a huge goal there, a huge response to, the Panthers' early goal. This happened only about, I think it was about 3 or 4 minutes after the Panthers had scored to take the 1-0 lead. So a great response there, and a great goal, a great finish by Alexis Lafreniere. And again, finding a way to score these kind of out of nowhere goals, and also in this case, certainly responding to a goal by the Panthers. So then Lafreniere scores again. This is a little bit later. This is in the second period, gives the Rangers a 3-2 lead. And kind of the same deal here, just an out of nowhere goal by Alexis Lafreniere. And it's funny because this could basically be an unassisted goal. Technically Trouba and Miller both get assists, but basically what happened, the Panthers were in the Rangers zone. Somebody took a shot. It deflected off of Trouba, went behind the net. Miller went back there to get it. Miller passed from behind the Ranger goal line to Lafreniere along the boards in the Ranger zone, and it was all Lafreniere after that. He, just unbelievable. He's got a Panther forward bearing down on him around the Ranger blue line, and he fakes going to the inside. Instead, he goes to the outside, just slips right by him, and then he gains the blue line, the Panther blue line. He's selling a shot here, and he gets the defenseman to go down to try to block the shot attempt. He did a great job making it look like he was going to, really let it fly here. But then just an insane toe drag. He gets by the defender. He's got another defender bearing down on him, and he gets checked and gets knocked to the ice and scores on a backhand while this is happening. Basically, like while he's flying through the air here. The hit might have been a little bit after the shot, but it's more fun the first way that I said it. So just an unbelievable goal by Lafreniere here, an unbelievable do-it-yourself kind of a goal, and kind of a scary moment, because when Lafreniere got hit, he went flying and his skate went up and caught Bobrovsky. It looked like in the helmet. Glad he was okay after that. But this is just highlight reel stuff, man. When it's all said and done for Alexis Lafreniere, a goal like this is going to be on his highlight reel, and that's years and years in the future. But for the time being here, Lafreniere really picking up the Rangers, and again, a do-it-yourself kind of a goal here for Alexis Lafreniere, and something else that I think we got to talk about, the Ranger power play is scuffling. At this point, I haven't tallied it up yet, but I think now they're about like 1 for 23 or 1 for their last 24, somewhere in that vicinity on the power play. And that being the case, you look, can we do some things differently? Can we change our approach a little bit? And obviously, one thing that is certainly an option is, do you go ahead and mess with the personnel a little bit? Do you drop anybody? We saw the Rangers very briefly in the regular season try to spread the wealth a little bit. I don't even remember who was playing with who, but they broke up the top power play unit, and 2 of the guys moved down a unit, 3 of them stayed there. They had some different line mates. It was a very short-lived experience, or experiment rather. I don't think I would do that. I wouldn't make wholesale changes, but the idea of Alexis Lafreniere being on the power play right now is something that the Rangers might want to consider. The issue is that I don't see an obvious candidate to come off of the top power play unit. And I know guys like Kreider and Mika and Panarin, they got to deliver a little bit more than what we've seen from those guys so far in this series here. And that's certainly fair to say at this point. But I just feel like, those are the Rangers' big guns, and they're going to stick with them. And I don't see them like taking Mika off of the top power play unit to put Lafreniere there. The one guy that I think, like, when this has been suggested in the past, the idea of putting Lafreniere on the top power play unit, the guy that a lot of us look to as far as being replaced by Lafreniere is often Trocheck, but Trocheck's been unbelievable. You can't take him off of that top power play unit. You want that dude on the ice as much as humanly possible. So I don't know. It's a good question, and maybe we'll dive a little bit deeper into that topic in the next episode. For the time being, again, I'm just glad that the Rangers are continuing to win games in spite of the power play not firing on all cylinders, and even the penalty kill. They've given up a couple of power play goals recently, but all I hear about is how the Rangers get saved by their special teams units and by Igor Shesterkin. Second straight game now where the Rangers have lost a special teams battle but won the game anyway. They gave up 2 power play goals. The Panthers were 2 for 6. The Rangers were 0 for 2 on their power play. And the Rangers did get a shorthanded goal, that's for sure. But even so, you still give the edge to the Panthers for special teams on this afternoon. Rangers won the game anyway. So finding a way to get it done despite not dominating on special teams and not having, one of your big weapons, the special teams dominance that's been such a part of this team all season. But we're going to keep everything going in just a second. Want to continue breaking down this win. And we got to talk about Barclay Goodrow. A lot happened in this game. What are we now, like 22 minutes into the episode here, and we're just now getting into the Barclay Goodrow stuff? I mean, just unbelievable. It kind of defies logic. Even from those of us that like Goodrow and know that he steps up in the playoffs, I mean, to see him do what he's doing right now is absolutely incredible. So we will talk about Goodrow and some other fun things in just a second. I want to read some of your comments as well. It looks like the comment section is kind of buzzing right now, so I definitely want to get to that too, and we will do all that fun stuff in just a second. Okay, let's go ahead and keep talking about this awesome Ranger win here. And let me just say, we rip on the ESPN announcers from time to time, and there's people that like the ESPN announcers, and we might have some people watching this right now that are fans of them. We might have some that don't, and if you do like those guys, perfect. That's awesome. Very cool. They're not my favorite announcers. I've made that clear, and I'll just leave it at that. I will say, though, a really great call on the second goal by Barclay Goodrow. I thought this really just kind of captured the moment. He says, "What has gotten into Barclay Goodrow?" And amen. I mean, again, we know this guy steps up his game in the playoffs. We know he's a hard-nosed player. We know he's out there giving it everything he's got on every shift. Even the biggest Barclay Goodrow fans in the world, though, I mean, who could have possibly had this guy 13 games into the playoffs penciled in for 6 postseason goals? That's where we're at right now. There's a dude that had 4 goals in 80 games in the regular season. It just defies all logic, and it goes back to something that I talked about recently in a recent episode, where if you're going to win the Stanley Cup, you need guys like this. We saw it from Barclay Goodrow. We've been seeing it for quite some time from Barclay Goodrow and Alex Wennberg. I mean, obviously, that was only his second point of the playoffs. But that's a moment that'll be remembered for a long time if the Rangers, actually complete the run here. And they got a long way to go, A lot of work still to be done against this Panther team, but seeing these guys, these role players step up in big spots like this, it's absolutely huge. And it gives a little bit of a reprieve to some of the Rangers star players who maybe haven't quite found their game, at least thus far in this series. And more on that in just a little bit. But I did want to talk about, the Goodrow goal, specifically the second one here that made the score 4-2. You get a shot block by Ryan Lindgren because, of course, what else would Ryan Lindgren do? And this one wasn't exactly like a screamer, but he still blocked the shot, did what he had to do there. Barclay Goodrow clears it all the way down the ice. I'm pretty sure he was trying to spring Vincent Trocheck on a breakaway because Trocheck kind of stuck behind everybody there. Was not able to connect on the long pass, but it's still a clear, so you'll obviously take it while you're shorthanded. And then Trocheck picks it up and goes around behind the net. He's got guys chasing him. He centers for Barclay Goodrow. Goodrow at this point, after clearing the puck, has hustled all the way from the Ranger zone all the way into the Panther zone. He's there for the pass, and he buries his shot. 4-2 Rangers. And that was at a point in the game where the Rangers are trying to kill off a double minor. The Panthers are going to have 4 straight minutes to try to tie the game because it was 3-2 Rangers at that point. I mean, and the Panthers had already scored twice on the power play. So in a worst case scenario for the Rangers, maybe they scored twice in that situation. It certainly was not outside the realm of possibility, but when you get a short-handed goal there, it's absolutely huge, and the Rangers continue to be opportunistic when they're killing penalties. What are they up to now? Like 5 or 6 shorties in the postseason, so that's been awesome to see. And obviously, Goodrow earlier in the game scored off of a deflection on a shot by Braden Schneider, so yeah, man, we're running out of adjectives to describe what Barclay Goodrow is doing here. But, something I wanted to mention in the last episode, just didn't quite get around to it. Barclay Goodrow in some ways reminds me a little bit of Brian Boyle. Big body dudes, bottom sixers, not, offensive stalwarts or anything like that, but reliable players and guys that seem to find a way to step up big when it comes to postseason hockey. With Brian Boyle, just kind of back up my point here. In 2012, 2013, the dude has 5 points in 38 regular season games. He then has 5 points in 11 playoff games. And then in 2013-14, that Ranger fourth line was huge during that run. You had Dorsett and Moore and Boyle. And Boyle that season, 18 points in 82 regular season games. He then gets 8 points in 25 playoff games. And not only that, and it's true of Goodrow too, it just felt like all of Boyle's points during those playoff runs always came in big spots, always were when the Rangers really needed it. He scored a huge Game 7 goal against the Penguins that year when the Rangers completed their 3-1 comeback. And it's the same deal with Barclay Goodrow. I mean, these goals, it feels like they need every single one of them. Certainly today, that was obviously the case. And, Barclay Goodrow just doing a heck of a job, just playing his brand of hard-nosed, blue-collar hockey, somebody that you want on the ice at the end of the game when you've got a lead, which, I mean, hey, that would be nice, wouldn't it, if the Rangers had a game that they didn't have to win in overtime here? That's what's so crazy about postseason hockey as well, because, the Rangers have won these games fair and square in overtime, but it could go either way once it goes to OT. We know that, and if the Panthers win both of those games, I mean, we're all sick to our stomachs right now, and as it is, we're walking on air, 2 straight overtime wins against, an amazing Panthers team, and what a job. I mentioned a second ago that, guys like Wennberg stepping up with the overtime winner, and guys like Barclay Goodrow stepping up with all these goals. 2 goals for Goodrow in this game here today. What that does, I mean, obviously it helps the Rangers win, and that's awesome. But it also gives the Ranger star players, again, a little bit of a reprieve and a little bit of an opportunity to, I would say, redeem themselves a little bit, because we just haven't seen the absolute best out of a lot of the Ranger star players. Kreider, obviously, legendary performance in Game 6 against the Canes. Nobody can take that away. Natural hat trick, leads the Rangers all the way back, and that's a big reason, the biggest reason, why the Rangers are now in the Eastern Conference Final. But those 3 goals in that Game 6 performance by Kreider, and again, unreal performance, those are his only 3 points of the last 5 games. And he's been a little bit quiet. I mean, I do feel like he's working hard and he's playing hard and everything, but the goals and the points just haven't been there. Artemi Panarin, in his last 5 games, he's got only 3 assists. He did have an assist in this one, but he's also a -6 during that time. And it just feels like Panarin doesn't have the puck. And he had kind of a tough game in this one, I thought. There was a turnover that he had at the Panther blue line that led to a Panther rush. There was a situation where Lafreniere led a rush into the Panther zone, dished to his left to Panarin. Panarin had a good amount of, time and space with the puck. and just didn't get anything on his shot. And Bobrovsky able to make a fairly easy left pad save. So, Panarin, he was awesome when the playoffs started. He's cooled off a little bit, but again, that's a nice thing of what these role players are doing. They're giving these guys a little bit of a chance to eventually find their game, and that's what championship teams do. They pick each other up in spots like this, and it's just great to see. Also, I believe that's now 8 straight games without a goal for Mika Zibanejad, and we've seen him play better. Now, look, for Mika and Kreider, it's a tough matchup. They're out there against the Barkov line, and, it's the playoffs and things are tight. You're going up against a world-class goalie and a team that defends very well, but you got to show up with a little bit more than this. You look at the end of this game, and Mika Zibanejad ends up with 3 shots on goal. Panarin only gets 1. Kreider only gets 1. You got to get a little bit more from those guys. Start putting the puck at the net a little bit more often, especially when they're out there on the power play, and the power play looked okay today, maybe a little bit better than it has recently, but Rangers are due for a power play goal, and you hope that it happens as soon as the next game, obviously. And then Adam Fox, too. He's another guy that you kind of throw into this group as far as the star players. But I do think with Fox, we got to be fair here. We got to grade on a curve a little bit because very clearly he's out there playing through something right now, and he's obviously compromised a little bit. But, regardless, he hasn't been his best either. And again, that just makes what the Wennbergs and the Goodrows of the world, what they're doing that much bigger. So awesome stuff there. I also want to definitely get to your guys' comments here before we call it a night. And again, thank you guys all for tuning in here. A couple final points I want to make here, or a couple of stats, really, I want to throw at you guys. The final shot attempts for this game, shot attempts, not shot on goal, shot attempts, 108 for the Panthers, 44 for the Rangers. We could debate how important that is, shot attempts, because a lot of these, obviously the majority of them aren't even shots on goal, but that still is a pretty staggering number. And that was the case, pretty much throughout this game. It always felt like the Panthers were getting a few more shot attempts, obviously, than the Rangers. But with all that said, let's go ahead and turn our attention to some of your comments here. You guys have shown up in full force for this post-game show here. And we'll start with PSY Guy Bry. To all the whiners about Wennberg being a bust, he was just saving it for when we needed it. Well, yeah, absolutely. That was when the Rangers needed it. Tron04 says, woo, LFGR. I'll let you guys kind of fill in the blanks there. And he also says, or she also, somebody also says all the Goodrow whiners as well. We'll see who else we got here. Henrik Cedeno says, Rodriguez faked his own death and came back the next shift. Well, he is a former Penguin, so you got to keep that in mind. He learned well from the best there. But no, I mean, honestly, if I'm being fair here, I mean, he did catch an elbow to the face. I don't honestly know how Trouba avoided the major penalty there. I mean, I got to call it like I see it. And I think if somebody on the Panthers or somebody on some other team did that to a player on the Rangers, I think we would want the 5 minutes. He ends up getting, Trouba does, the slash. That had happened before that, and then the elbowing as well. So the double minor. And obviously the Rangers not only kill that off, but they get a shorty during that time as well. I want to mix up a couple of the comments here. Obviously, a couple of people have commented more than once, and that's awesome. Let's see. Christian Fuentes says, "Let's go, John." Yes, absolutely. Philip Aldridge says 6 more wins. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? Like, just think of how many games the Rangers have won this season. Just 6 more wins. But we know better. We know how difficult this is going to be, and what a battle it's going to be all the way through. And like I said, we are not done with this Panther team by a long shot. Feel good about the win. Enjoy the win. Obviously, you should be feeling good. 2 straight overtime wins. 2 wins away from getting to the Cup final. But stay humble and understand, there's still going to be some ups and downs throughout this whole thing. We went through an absolute roller coaster in this game between the third period and then the Wennberg overtime winner. But they found a way to get it done. And that's been a trademark of this Ranger team all season. John Harmon says, dude, I am so glad you are doing this right now, John. Yeah, it's my pleasure, man. I like doing these live shows. I like doing them after the game ends and everything's kind of fresh in your mind. And we've all got, kind of the emotions that we're still feeling after the win that the Rangers had there. So yeah, happy to do a live episode here and happy to have, so many people stopping by to check it out. Up to 120 watching live here. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you're on Twitter, give it a retweet, do whatever you got to do, and make sure you give a like and a subscribe as well. I would obviously very much appreciate it. We recently passed the 3,000 subscriber mark, and big thanks to you guys for helping make that happen. That's absolutely awesome. Shireen Walters says LGR. Okay, so I think there's like an emoji here that's not showing up in my chat. I don't know what the emoji was supposed to be, but indeed, LGR, indeed. Yankee Mojo says this game was a tough watch, but let's go Rangers. Yeah, it's never easy, man. You just it's what we sign up for, though. We're hockey fans, and that's just the way to go. That's just the way we have to get through the whole thing together. Jonathan Moore says, my daughter asked me if I was okay in that third period. I get it, man. I got a 2-year-old at home, my daughter, and I have to really kind of harness myself a little bit, which is so hard to do during playoff hockey. I can do it in the regular season just fine, but playoff hockey, man, the emotions come out, and you just if I get upset or I yell at the TV, she'll start to worry about me. And I'll tell her, no, Daddy's okay, it's okay, and she'll be fine after that, but. Believe it or not, she's only 2. She will watch a little bit of the game. She doesn't have the attention span yet, but she'll say go Rangers, and I'll have her saying go Kreider and go Igor and all these other things. So that's cool. So I've been there, man. I totally get where you're coming from, Jonathan. Eric Dane says, what do you get if John fell into a volcano, a really hot chick? Well, that's a new one, man. There's been a lot of plays on my name over the years from my friends and everything, but have not heard that one before, but I like it. That's pretty solid. That's definitely in dad joke territory right there. Who else we got? Thomas Capolini. Thomas is on here pretty often. What percent out of 100 do you give for how likely the Rangers win Game 4? It's a great question, and Catterpuss here followed up with an answer to that question, 50%, and. Yeah, I mean, that sounds about right. I mean, I feel like that's such a cop-out answer on my part, but these teams are so evenly matched and everything is so back and forth. It is on the road, although you wouldn't know it, from the way the crowd was reacting to some of the Ranger goals. There are a lot of Ranger fans in there, but it is the Panthers' barn. They're a fantastic team. They've been a resilient team, too. You look back to what they did last year, getting down 3-1 to the Bruins. They come back and they eliminate them. Games 5 and 7 both went into overtime. They were down by a goal late in Game 7, scored with 30 seconds to go. So the Panthers are no joke, man. I mean, they're going to come out flying in the next episode, and I'm sure hitting everything that moves. And the Rangers have to be ready for that. If the Rangers, this is something similar to what I said going into Game 6 against the Canes. The Rangers have to treat Game 4 like they are down 2-1. Like they are the team that needs to win this game. Obviously, it's a huge swing game. Every playoff game is a huge swing game, but the difference between 2-2 and 3-1 Rangers is astronomical, and that's just the nature of the beast. We'll see if they can take a stranglehold of this series, but even if they win the next game, there's no guarantees. It's tough to eliminate teams at this point in the season. It's deep in the playoffs, and teams know how close they are to winning a Stanley Cup, and they're not going to let go of the dream very easily. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I'd say about 50%. Shireen Walters, though, a little bit more optimistic, says 80%. So I hope Shireen is right. Let's see. Toronto 4 says, still relying on Igor to make saves too often. It is not sustainable. Yeah, I mean, certainly in this game, that was the case. But, Igor's Igor, and he's playing some of the best hockey that we've seen him play all season. I don't want to see him get bombarded by shots like he did. If the Rangers can get that under control a little bit, then I think they'll be in good shape. But Igor, the one thing about him, and again, you don't want to play with fire too much, but he seems to thrive in chaos. When he's busy and there's a lot of action and a lot of pucks coming at him, that's when he seems to be at his best. He gets into a groove and just starts to feel it, and obviously very cool under pressure. But yeah, you're right. I mean, you can't rely on Igor Shesterkin to bail you out every single game, and hopefully the Rangers are able to tighten things up a little bit defensively in the next one. I don't know how many of us thought it would be 5-4 in this game, especially after the show that the goalies put on the game before this. But that's the Stanley Cup playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised if the next one is 2-1, and one goalie or another is gonna, obviously make the difference for their team. What were the block shots for each team? I do not have that in front of me right now. It felt like there were kind of a lot. Here we go. So, oh my God, 37 block shots for the Rangers, 14 for the Panthers. 37 block shots for the New York Rangers. Again, people talk about this team. They have no heart. They have no grit. 37 block shots. I mean, there are guys on this team that will happily wear a slap shot to any part of their body to prevent the chance of the puck going on net and going in. And man, I mean, that's tremendously impressive. I gotta look up. I gotta find. I don't think NHL.com has it, but there are websites that'll tell you how many block shots that every player had, and just some gritty blue collar players on the Rangers, and that's tremendously impressive being able to do that. Yeah, Tron answered the question there. We had 3 times as many block shots. Let's see who else we got here. Give me 1 second. I need a sip of water. Okay. John says, wow, I got my shout out. No way. Haha. Well, look, man, you called it. I mean, when you call Alex Wennberg having a big moment and then he scores in overtime, his second goal as a Ranger, I mean, that's the least I can do. Who's laughing now says, thought of something long after the incident. Trouba major plus suspension was our only chance to get Zach Jones in this lineup. Well, if any Ranger defenseman comes out of the lineup, I got to believe Zach Jones is next in line. It's nice that has not happened. Zach Jones, look, he played really well down the stretch. And the Raiders at one time had like 3 different defensemen out of the lineup. And, Chad Ruhwedel was in there. I thought he did a pretty nice job. And everybody got healthy. And unfortunately, Zach Jones was the odd man out. I know some people want him in for Gustafsson. And I get that to an extent, but I don't think Gustafsson has really played that badly. He's a number 6 defenseman. No number 6 defenseman in this league is perfect. I think there's been more good than bad from Gustafsson overall during his season as a Ranger here. And, he's not, I think, hurting the team. If you listen to because I gave the ESPN announcers a shout out, but now we're going to have some fun at their expense. If you listen to them, Erik Gustafsson scored the game-winning goal today. And Erik Gustafsson wasn't even on the ice when that goal was scored. They thought that Ryan Lindgren was Erik Gustafsson. And they did mention that, Wennberg was there and maybe he deflected it. But, they still got it wrong. They initially, when the goal was scored, thought that a player that wasn't on the ice had scored the game-winning goal. Let's see what else here. Jimmy R said, Rangers had too many penalty minutes, 12 compared to Florida 4. Yeah, I mean, that's been an issue for the Rangers the entire playoffs, and they've yet to really, really get burned by it. I know they gave up 2 power play goals today, but all is forgiven when you win. But yeah, I mean, you are starting to play with fire a little bit, taking as many penalties as the Rangers have taken. I know some people were upset about some of the calls in this game, but when you look at the first period and the 3 penalties that the Rangers took, they were all penalties. I mean, who was it? Schneider, I think, had to shoot the puck over the glass. He took the delay of game. The Rempe one, I can see people being a little bit upset, but he kind of had the guy hooked and kind of like dragged him into the boards. They called it roughing, I think. I think it was more of a hold than anything else. And the Trouba penalties, I mean, the slash and the elbow to the face, I mean, they're penalties. So I can't get that mad. The one thing that the refs did in this game that I was furious about, and so was Jacob Trouba for the record, Rangers are killing a penalty, and they get the puck out of the zone, and Mika's got the puck. And we know Mika, he's struggled a little bit, but he is dangerous when the Rangers are shorthanded. He's had a lot of good looks, a lot of goals, has had a hand in a lot of shorthanded goals for the Rangers over the years, and certainly this season as well. The Raiders basically had a 4-on-2, and the refs blow the play dead because somebody on the Panthers is down on the ice. Now, look, if somebody is in desperate need of medical attention, then okay, blow the whistle and get him the help that he needs. But, I mean, nothing happened here. There was just a player down on the ice, and they blew the whistle, and Trouba was furious, and he had every right to be. I wasn't too happy either. That was my only, real issue, I think, with the refs in this game. There was a situation where, Wennberg got pulled down and maybe a penalty could have been called, but nothing too unforgivable from the refs in this one, which is good. Slapsman says, congrats boys and girls. What a bleeping win. Yes. Amen. Steve Mark says, you do a great job retelling the games. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much, Steven. Thanks for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. What else we got here? Mateo73M says, let's go. Yeah. Just one. NYG says better lucky than good. Yeah, I mean, look, there was some luck in the Rangers getting this win here. Something else that I'll say too, the last few minutes of this game were just heart-stopping, and, the Panthers had scored twice in the third period. I'm talking about regulation, not the overtime. But the Panthers had scored twice in the third period, and Rangers are, like I said, they're so far back on their heels. They're kind of out of position and just kind of scrambling, and the Panthers are all over them. I feel like if that game in regulation would have gone on for another 1 or 2 minutes, if there was an extra 1 or 2 minutes on the clock, very good chance the Panthers score. They score the go-ahead goal and potentially win this game. Not a guarantee. Igor Shesterkin was on top of his game down the stretch here like he needed to be, and maybe he could have gotten the Rangers into overtime. But again, watching this game down the end here, down the stretch, at least me, I'm thinking just get this thing to overtime. Let's regroup, catch our breath a little bit, and come out fresh and figure out a way to get it done. And that's what the Rangers were able to do. Who else we got here? Kay says, "What up, Johnny boy? Let's go." Yeah, what's up, man? Want to go ahead and get a couple different people here before we call it a day. Dennis Pett says, "Trouba played terrible. Panarin looks lost out there." This is not Jacob Trouba's best game. It wasn't Keandre Miller's best game either. Miller on the first 2 goals, I think, could have done a little bit more. The first one, he could have done a little bit more to prevent it. The guy was just able to get around him and get to the net. And the second one, I mean, the Rangers are shorthanded, so I get that Miller's trying to clear the puck, but it gets knocked down, and it just not a good play, and then it deflects off of him and into the net. The second part of it wasn't as bad as the first part of it, just kind of a bad bounce. But yeah, his clearing attempt was really bad there. And obviously the Rangers hopefully going to get a little bit more out of Trouba and Miller going forward, and for sure Panarin. Panarin, this was one of his weaker games of the playoff run, I would say. But again, the Rangers won despite all that. So figure we could pretty much wrap up there. Let's see if there's anything else we want to get to. Kill Gill says power play line changes, Laugh and Gus on power play 1 and Panarin on Foxy on power play 2. Points for creativity for sure. I just don't think they're going to drop really either of those guys. I mean, with Fox, I could buy it maybe a little bit more because he is, playing through something right now. And, Gustafsson, when he was quarterbacking the power play early in the season, when Fox was hurt, he did a heck of a job. But I don't see them making wholesale changes like that, especially when you won the game here. I think Laviolette sticks with his guys, his big horses, the guys that got him this far, and lets them settle it. I think that's probably what'll happen. I would love to see Lafreniere get on that top power play. I just don't know who you take off. It's a tough call, and like I said, that's a topic we might discuss more in the next episode before Game 4. Biffo says Rempe is the catalyst. Yeah, I mean, look, he didn't play a ton in this game, and I don't know if he was out there at all in the third period. He definitely wasn't out there in the overtime, but he does, give his team a jolt. There's no doubt about that. Dimitri says, "Hi, John. Do you anticipate any lineup changes for Game 4, assuming everyone is healthy?" Probably not. I mean, VZ is out. He's week to week, so he won't be available. Blake Wheeler's been out there the last couple of games, during pregame skate, so he could always be an option. He's off of IR, and it sounds like he's cleared and ready to go if the Rangers need him. But Rangers got a dramatic win here, and I just don't see them doing anything, over the top. And I don't see them messing with the lineup. I think with VZ being hurt, that kind of paves the way for Rempe and Kakko to stay in the lineup. And, losing VZ, it's tough. He's a good player, battles every game, big part of the penalty kill as well. But, Kakko and Rempe are probably the 2 guys benefiting from that the most, because I don't see them putting Wheeler in there or Brodzinski or any of the Wolfpack players that just got called up, in case of emergency. I don't think anything will be different. I think they'll go the same way. Izzy says, had Lavi let Rempe play a little bit in the third period, the game wouldn't have gone to overtime and the Rangers would have won in regulation, but it happened. They stole the game in the end. I got to respectfully disagree there, because I just like would Rempe have prevented the 2 goals? He doesn't get a ton of ice time in general. And I know he goes out there and he hits and he, makes opposing players nervous and everything, but I don't know that he would have been able to make that big of a difference. And I like Rempe. I do. And I do think, that there's something to be said for him going out there and, obviously giving the Rangers a boost and some electricity. He certainly has his role for this team, but I don't know that he stops the Panthers single-handedly here. Henrik Cedeno says thoughts on dressing 11 forwards and 7 defensemen. You could always try it, but again, I just don't really see the need to do that. It's not something the Rangers have done all that often this season anyway. I don't know if they've done it at all, actually. And if they have, it's maybe just 1 or 2 games. Yeah, I mean, I just don't really see it because who would you even take off the ice? And I assume Henrik here is looking to get Zach Jones into the game. Jones obviously hasn't played in a while. But I mean, do you want to take Rempe out of the lineup? I wouldn't do that. Kako, I don't think I would take him out of the lineup to do that either. So never say never. It's always something that could be an option, but I don't see them doing that in the near future going forward here. Izzy, I gotta get this comment from Izzy. Sean McDonough should be on Botchamania in the future, even though he has nothing to do with wrestling. Yeah, he calls just about every other sport, but working at WWE full-time, I can certainly appreciate that comment there. So we got somebody from an Oilers fan in the chat. You know what? There's an Oilers fan in the chat right now talking smack about the Rangers. You know what, buddy? Go ahead and worry about your own series. And if we see you in the finals, you know what? May the best team win. But you got your hands full with the Dallas Stars, who obviously struck back for a win in Game 2 there. This person also asked, do you think Oilers are going to win the series? I don't know. That's a tough call. That one could certainly go either way. I think I probably would pick the Oilers to eventually get the job done there. No real reason, just they got a heck of a team, and I think they could find a way to get it done. Rob West says Rangers were up 4-2, and the broadcast still would not stop with how great the Panthers are. No love for the Rangers on ESPN. Yeah, I mean, everybody feels like the announcers are against their team, but Ray Ferraro seems to really, really not like the Rangers. He's always got some excuse like, well, this is the only reason why the Rangers are winning. And, I think he said something after this game like, thank you, Igor Shesterkin. And it's not a completely unfair thing to say because Igor was awesome and he was the biggest reason why the Rangers won this game. But there is something to be said, like I said earlier, for a team that gets outplayed and still finds a way to dig deep and get the job done. I figured we could pretty much call it there. Yeah, I mean, we've got we'll do the final few comments here. A-Stat Ninja says, you are my New York brother. The Knicks and Rangers got the same energy, all dogs. Yeah, Knicks had a fun run this year, for sure. And it would have been cool if both could have made it to the conference final, but obviously the Knicks have something to build on next season as well. Ben P says, at this point, give Rempe the Calder. Probably not, but it'd be fun if they did. And Rob West, we'll close it out with this. Happy for Wennberg. He's been solid, but the posts have had his number lately. Way to keep at it, baby. Yeah, Wennberg, he's been showing a little more life offensively, and it was awesome to see him get the job done here. But I figure we can call it there. We've got almost an hour here. Thank you guys, as always, for tuning in to the Locked On New York Ranger podcast, your team every day. And if you'd like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that's @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to the Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time. Let's go Rangers.